I'm Cathy Caudill, and I'm professor of pathology at the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, as of January 2021, it'll be 15 years here. Yes, I know, it blows my mind too. 15 years.
Wow, 15 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So as a professor of pathology, I'm assuming as a kid you didn't want to do that.
No. Even 15 years ago, I didn't know I wanted to do that. But here I am.
So as a kid, what did you want to do?
Well, like most kids, I wanted to do something with animals. I wanted to be a veterinarian and just play with animals for the rest of my life. But starting in about middle school, I started getting kind of an itch to teach, but it was more for teaching the hearing impaired. I had a grandmother that gave me a book on sign language, and I got really excited about learning sign language and thought, oh, well, maybe one day I'd teach at a school for the deaf. And then in high school, kind of the tug more and more to just teach generally, despite a lot of people telling me, no, you don't want to teach. A lot of teachers telling me, no, you don't want to teach. You would be great at this, this, and this, and this. But in my high school yearbook, if you look in my high school yearbook, in my senior profile, it says in there that I want to teach. And so that's what I've done in some way or other my entire life. I'm 47 years old, and I've had many different jobs and many different pastimes, and all of them have involved teaching in one way or the other.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah.
So, you know, as a kid you want to do animals, teach sign language, we have these different dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But as adults we have dreams too. Sometimes we have dream jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a dream job out there for you?
I love what I do. I say frequently that I can't imagine having a better gig than what I do. I love where I'm at. I love what I do. I love the students that I teach. I love the people that I work with. I love where I live. Pikeville is an amazing community. My dream job, though, would be kind of what I'm doing right now, but outside. I'm very much an outdoors person, and being cooped up in an office all day long kind of gets to me. So if I could be outside a little bit more, if I could teach pathology from the outdoors, and who knows, maybe with COVID, we may one day get there, right? But that would help take it to the next level.
Okay. So at least you have this beautiful backdrop you can at least see outside.
Yeah, that's true.
Did anything happen in life to spur you towards that path of maybe particularly teaching pathology?
No, I'm not teaching pathology per se. The drive to teach, I think, has probably been instilled by having really good models. I mean, number one, my dad, and my mom as well, but particularly my dad is more of a quiet, gentle nudge, guide you in the direction of really, oh, you got a question about that? Well, this is a way you can go about finding an answer. Or, we would go on hikes and just, do you remember the name of that flower? What was special about it? Those types of things. I had great role models in elementary and middle school. I had a 4th grade teacher who was wonderful. Amy Hobbs was her name, and she would have us over for sleepovers at her house. I mean, she would just really was an encourager as a teacher. I brought chestnuts in one time. And if you know anything about chestnuts, you got to keep them refrigerated or worms will start hatching out. Well, we all went to Thanksgiving, and we came back from Thanksgiving, and there were all these little worms crawling through the classroom where I'd left them in my desk. And rather than being all freaked out about it, she was more of, well, where would those have come from? They couldn't have just magically, appeared in these chestnuts, and really kind of made us all kind of question, like, well, how did those worms, come out of these chestnuts? What's the life cycle of this organism that's coming out of there? I would bring box turtles in, and they would get lost in a room. She was always, just very very sweet and gentle and an encourager and kind of really fostered that inquisitiveness that all kids have. And then really great math teachers also. Even though I don't teach math, I had phenomenal teachers of mathematics. I still love math because of them. And so why pathology? It was by accident. I didn't pick pathology. I didn't pick this place. Kind of my career path, I guess I should back up here, is when I graduated from high school, I went to university. I got a degree in teaching high school biology. I went back to my old high school in Powell County, and I taught high school there for 7 years. And I loved teaching high school. I loved it. Had never really thought would do anything else but teach high school. But I kind of felt like an imposter in the sense that I would tell my students, well, this is how science is done. This is the scientific method, and this is how researchers ask questions about things and pursue the answers to those questions. And I'd never done that. So an opportunity came up and to do an internship at UK, University of Kentucky, over the summer. It was just for teachers, have some lab experience, see what it's like to do research. And I did that over the summer and really got excited and loved doing research and thought, you know what, I want to go get back and get my PhD. And so it just happened to work out in my life to be able to take that risk after 7 years of teaching high school to go back and get my PhD. And so that's what I did. But I was finishing up my PhD program, and a former student that was in my program was teaching here at University of Pikeville, which was then Pikeville College, School of Osteopathic Medicine, Pat Heist, and he taught microbiology here. And he called me up one day and he said, Cathy, we are anticipating an opening in pathology. You've got to check this place out. I know you're all about teaching. You've got to see this place. It's phenomenal. That's what we're all about. And, I'm on the phone with him in the lab, and I'm like, Eastern Kentucky, School of Osteopathic Medicine? No, that's okay. And I was not interested. Luckily, Pat called me back 2 more times to encourage me to apply because I'd kind of gotten the research bug and had been offered a position at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go just do some more research for a little while. But Pat was insistent that I check this place out. And I'm so glad that he did, because if I had gone the research route, I think I would have quickly burned out. And I came here, fell in love with the mountains, because I grew up in western North Carolina in the mountains. Fell in love with the mission of the school. So I'd lived healthcare disparities in those mountains in western North Carolina. And most of all, I wanted to teach. I mean, it was just getting back to really what I truly enjoyed doing. That was my whole goal of leaving the high school classroom in the first place, was to get my PhD and go back. And so to be able to come back now to very intrinsically motivated medical students was just really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm glad I didn't hang up on Pat again the third time.
Yeah, 3 times. That's kind of a beginning to start to see a pattern there. That maybe I should pay attention to this, right?
Yeah.
So I know it's hard to define lives in a paragraph or a sentence, but what would you say is your call if you were trying to put it in a sentence or 2?
Well, I mean, my call is to teach and to be a benefit to other people. I mean, one thing that I really love about teaching is that moment of taking something very complex and making it very simple. I get bored teaching the easy stuff. I don't like teaching the easy stuff. I love part of I think why I enjoy teaching so much is that you have to be a really good learner and you have to enjoy learning to teach. So I love that aspect of it, but in doing so, to be able to take something very complicated and distill it down for someone who may not naturally have that kind of inclination, right? There's something really rewarding about having those aha moments that you see come across somebody else's face. And then there are also a number of other things that I didn't expect when I started teaching, that you impact the lives of people in other ways beyond the academics. There are so many times when people unexpectedly reach out for help, for guidance, for, they may have this one thing going on in their life that's getting in the way of the academics, and I won't say I do a great job at helping people, but I think sometimes people just want someone to listen. And if I can do that for somebody and then help in that way, then that makes me feel pretty good to be able to offer that to someone and be of benefit to someone in that capacity.
That's beautiful, being present to people and supporting them as a teacher, but it just kind of opens up and you get those aha moments also. You mentioned your dad, you mentioned a 4th grade teacher. Is there anybody else who's been really influential in your path and in your call?
I've been really lucky to have a lot of really great mentors. I feel a little bad about beginning to list, this huge long line of people that, and then miss someone. But, I think we all take bits and pieces from people that we've been exposed to over the course of our lifetime. I mean, my dad and Miss Hobbs, and my mathematics teachers like Miss Carpenter and Miss Perkins, in particularly really, really stand out to me. But I've also had some really bad teachers too. And to be honest with you, a lot of those have influenced me in ways of, influenced my teaching in that. I know I don't want to do that. I hate to put a negative spin on things, but, sometimes some of our strongest influences can also be negative. So I guess just being mindful of those moments of, this is a positive influence, this is a negative influence, and being very deliberate and making choices of what you're going to take away from those people as you decide the type of teacher that you're going to be.
Absolutely. So when you think about your life and your call to teach, someone might be watching this and say, I actually want to teach at a medical school. Like, what did you do to position yourself to get to this spot?
Well, I think probably, like I mentioned, it was more or less accidental that I ended up here, right? But I think generally, and it's not something that applies just to people that want to teach at medical school per se, but advice that I would give to anybody that is pursuing something that is really tugging at their heartstrings, or not really, it may not have an emotional component at all. It may just be something like, wow, I really think I would enjoy doing this, is to be unafraid to take risks. Be a risk taker. Really, when I reflect of the people around me, because I have great colleagues that I work with, and other people that I admire who are really what I would consider being in their life calling, is they're there because they were a risk taker. They weren't afraid to fail. They weren't afraid to fall on their face. You know, certainly I could still be teaching high school biology. I'd be perfectly happy doing that. But I'm really glad that I took that risk after 7 years. You know, I was very comfortable in that position. I had a reputation, great reputation as a teacher. Could have stayed there for forever, right? And there was something really frightening about leaving that and going back and pursuing a PhD and failing at that. And everybody knowing that I'd failed at that. But wow, I'm so glad that I took that risk. It opened up so many other doors for me, like teaching here, that I would have never even considered.
So the idea of taking a risk, for people who just have no idea, I mean, you were already kind of in that track of teaching and exploring, but for those who really just have no idea, outside of taking a risk, is there anything else you would tell them or advice you would have for them?
Show up, be present, be engaged with what you're doing. Let others know how much you enjoy what you do. You know, it's one thing to, you know, say you want to do this thing, right? But it's another to become so vested in it and fully immersed in it that people see that it's what you love doing, and you know that they want to have you at, you know, for instance here, Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. Part of the reason that I'm here is that interview process, I'm sure, is that they saw that I loved teaching, that they saw that I had a track record of helping students, of teaching, of service, and so on. So I would say just, you know, throw yourself into it. If it's something that you want to do it. and just don't hold back from it.
Well, we here are really blessed to have 15 years already of your excellence, and I think about all the professionals, the doctors, who you've had a hand in training and supporting, and it's just a huge umbrella of influence. So thank you so much for what you do every day, and being willing to change and grow with this school. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, sure thing.